Picture the ultimate American scene. It's July 4th, 1776. 56 founding fathers are crowded into a room in Philadelphia, bravely standing shoulder to shoulder, taking turns with a quill pen to sign the Declaration of Independence. That scene is a complete fabrication. There was no grand ceremony. Nobody lined up to sign a piece of parchment that afternoon. Take a look at this document. This is what was actually produced on July 4th. It's a freshly printed poster, and as you can see at the bottom, it only carries two names, John Hancock and Charles Thompson. The room wasn't full of patriots taking a stand. It was mostly empty, hot, and the delegates were simply trying to meet a printer's deadline. The men who approved that text were committing high treason. By putting those words on paper, they were daring the British Crown, the most powerful empire on earth, to hang them. So, if the 4th of July was essentially just a bureaucratic sign-off on a rush printing job by two stressed-out guys, why do we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on fireworks every year to celebrate it? To answer that, we have to look at the incredibly chaotic, sweaty timeline of what actually happened. The official legal vote by the Continental Congress to separate from Great Britain didn't happen on July 4th. It passed on July 2nd. Getting that vote to pass was a logistical nightmare. Congress needed unanimous consent from all 13 colonies. A single no vote meant the British could divide and conquer them. And right up until the final hours, the delegation from Delaware was deadlocked in a tie. To break that tie, a delegate named Caesar Rodney had to undertake a brutal 80-mile horseback ride through a severe thunderstorm in the middle of the night. He was gravely ill, suffering from asthma and facial cancer, but he rode through the mud and arrived just in time to cast the deciding vote. The resolution passed. John Adams was so thrilled that he immediately wrote a letter home, confidently predicting that future generations would celebrate July 2nd with parades and fireworks forever. Adams got the date wrong, because while they had legally voted to separate on the 2nd, the actual manifesto explaining their reasons to the world was still a rough draft, and it needed edits. Over the next 2 days, the delegates sat in the Pennsylvania State House to review Thomas Jefferson's draft. The physical conditions were miserable. It was 80 degrees, they were wearing heavy wool coats, and the building was right next to a livery stable, meaning relentless swarms of biting horseflies flew through the open windows and attacked their legs. Congress spent July 3rd and 4th ruthlessly debating the text, ultimately slashing about a quarter of Jefferson's original words. Jefferson sat in the corner in silent fury while they butchered his prose. They removed major sections to appease the Southern colonies, including a highly hypocritical clause where Jefferson, a man who enslaved people himself, attempted to blame the British king for the slave trade. Eager to escape the stifling heat and the horseflies, the delegates finally wrapped up their debate. They approved the revised text on July 4th and immediately sent it across town to a local printer named John Dunlap to produce those initial broadside posters. There was no divine inspiration or sweeping musical score on July 4th. It was simply the day a sweaty, bug-bitten committee finalized a document so they could go home. It wasn't until mid-July that Congress realized they needed a permanent, formal copy. They ordered the text to be engrossed, which is simply the 18th century term for writing a document out in beautiful, official calligraphy on large animal skin parchment. That massive physical parchment wasn't completely finished until August 2nd, 1776. That is the actual day the famous signing process began. When you look at the engrossed parchment, you immediately see John Hancock's massive signature anchored in the center. Legend says he wrote it that large to taunt the king, but the truth is much simpler. As president of the Congress, he signed first, and he had plenty of blank space to work with. The rest of the names were added in a disorganized trickle over the following months. Some delegates who had actively voted against independence were forced by their home states to sign it anyway. Others who signed the document weren't even elected to Congress until weeks after July 4th had passed. Because adding your name to this paper was an undeniable admission of treason, the signed parchment was kept as a highly guarded secret. The public wouldn't see the full list of names for another 5 months, protecting the delegates from being immediately hunted down and hanged by the British. The iconic painting we all know is a comfortable fiction. It neatly masks a terrifying, drawn-out reality where terrified men slowly added their names to their own potential death warrants. If the legal vote was on the 2nd and the physical signatures didn't happen until August, why did July 4th win the battle for our national memory? Because July 4th is the day the ideas went public. When citizens read those freshly printed posters in the streets, they didn't care whose wet ink was on a hidden piece of parchment. They cared that a new nation had just been declared on paper. The myth of a single, unified signing ceremony survives because it is a much easier story to digest. We like the idea of absolute agreement more than the reality of months of agonizing political bickering. We contrast that flawless myth against the deeply flawed humans who actually drove the process. These men argued, compromised, and ultimately failed to extend the equality they were writing about to enslaved people, women, and indigenous populations. But the messy reality of the summer of 1776 is far more inspiring than the perfect myth. It proves that democracy and progress do not require magical moments of total harmony. They are built through the ongoing, imperfect actions of deeply flawed humans, arguing their way through a difficult blueprint.